is a swinging station in Buffalo, the big WUFO.
And once again, I'd like to welcome everybody to the Buffalo History Channel. My name is Doug Ruffin, the curator and content creator for the Buffalo History Channel and Urban Legacy Filmworks. I'd like to thank all of you for all of your continued support over these past several months. The response to the Buffalo History Channel has been tremendous. I'd like to once again thank you all very much. Just a few things I want to get out of the way. A lot of videos we've been posting up lately. They've been really blowing up, you know, from the John Young's history and the Michael Jackson victory tour, getting a lot of feedback on that. Also, I've got to send my heartfelt condolences to the family of Jimmy Lyons. A few months back, I had a chance to interview Jimmy Lyons. We talked about his father, who was the first full-time African-American radio jockey in the city of Buffalo. We also talked about his career. And also, he was also one of my earliest mentors in media that I met back in 1988. And he sadly made his transition a few days ago, and my condolences go to his family. Also want to give a shout out to the Buffalo Challenger, Alnisa and Leah. I want to thank you for that wonderful article that you printed on me and the Buffalo History Channel in this current issue of the Challenger. My parents saw it. They're going to be mailing me a few issues and holding on to some for themselves. So definitely have to thank the Buffalo Challenger. And now I'd like to welcome my very, very special guest, another one of the great legends of radio station 1080 AM WUFO. I'm trying to get some of the more legendary women and get their perspective. We've been talking to the men a lot, but I want to talk to some of the women too. And this is one of the most famous ones. The Reverend Darcel Holloway. I want to make sure I'm saying, is it Reverend or is the Reverend Dr. Darcel? Or
it is the Reverend Doctor. I got my doctorate 25 years ago.
Okay.
I've been a doctor for a long time.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, Reverend Dr. Darcel, let's start from the beginning. What was it that got you into radio, and how did you get on WUFO?
Ooh, okay. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. Absolutely. And my condolences also to the Lyons family. This is a rough time, a rough period we're all going through. Yes. And by the way, my nickname, some people call me Dr. D. Jay Moss gave me that name, and it kind of stuck with me. Okay. How did I get in? I was at Buff State. I was a student, and my sister, who, may she rest in peace, Marva J. Daniel.
Yes, yes.
Her school was named after her, the Marva J. Daniel Futures Preparatory School on the street, named after her as well. I was very fortunate to have her as my tutor. Marva was 10 years older than me. So, you know, I was always fussing with her because she was so bossy, but she was an adult when I was a kid. And, but I listened to her, and I used to write her letters. I was at Albany State. And she says, oh, you write so well. You need to think about journalism. And I really didn't know what I was going to go into. So I said, okay, that sounds like a good idea. So I was in the journalism program. I transferred to Buff State, and I was in the communications media department. I think they've changed the name by now. And I was concentrating on print journalism. And I was out one evening, as young people do. I don't even know the club where I was at, but I don't remember the name of it, nor the person I was talking to at the time. But some people were, a group of us were out, and this guy was saying to me, and if he sees this, please contact me because I owe you a debt. He said to me, Darcel, why don't you go to the local radio station and see if you can get a job writing copy? And I said, oh, okay. Because, he was asking me about my major and stuff. And so I said, that's a good idea. I could write commercials and things like that. So my mom had just passed, and my sister and I were living together, and I left her a note one day. When you're young, I was 19. You just feel like you can do whatever you put your mind to. Right. At least that's what my mother used to drum into my head. So I left her a note saying, I'm going to find a job today. I'll see you later. And I used to keep my resumes in the trunk of my little Pinto. And so okay. I went down to 89 LaSalle Avenue, and it was about like 8:30 or something. And it hadn't dawned on me that the business day had not started. So I called the DJ, because, back in those days, I guess you still can. You could call in and talk to folks. And I got Al Parker. And I said, hi, my name is Darcel. My maiden name was Howell. I'm Darcel Holloway, and I'm looking for a job, and I'd like to leave my resume, but the door's locked. So he says, well, the business office hasn't opened yet, and come back. And by the way, I had gone up to the corner to use the payphone because we didn't have any cell phones back then. Right. And when I came back, he said, come on back and I'll let you in. When I got back to the station, that little station on LaSalle Avenue, there is an image that is burned in my mind forever. And it was one of the greatest lessons ever. Uh-oh. It was just an open door. Because Al had to go back and do his show. So he didn't have, time to stand there and wait for me. Right. And I'm like, oh my gosh, the door is open.
And that's what? Like they would still do that even when I was there.
Okay.
They would still leave that.
You got to do that. You what else can you do? But the thing is, for me, it was like a spiritual lesson. Knocking, the door shall be open. Asking, you shall receive. Right. So that stayed with me for my whole life. I was the first full-time female on the air. Thelka McCall had been there doing things on the weekend and working in I think, community affairs and that kind of thing. Right. But I was the first DJ. But before, I wasn't hired to be a DJ, though. I was hired as a news reporter. And I became the news director. Of course, that we had a staff of one. And I used to drive that little tiny car that had WUFO on the side of it.
Oh,
and
really? Really? Y'all had a news car, huh?
We had a little news car, and I used to drive it to go to the Attica prison riot trials. And I covered those trials. And I even did a documentary.
Really?
Yeah, I was a big little bee.
You got it?
I have no idea where it is.
Oh, wow.
Unfortunately, I lost a lot of things when I moved out of state. But at any rate, what happened next was, at that time, WUFO was a daytime station. They went off the air when the sun went down. And summer was coming, and so that meant they were going to be on longer, and they needed another DJ. And so my dear friend, Roy Sampson, who was the person who hired me, he went, rather than to get rid of me, because they were going to get rid of the news department to save money and utilize NBN, the National Black Network. Okay. And because they were getting feeds regularly from them. And I used to report through them about the Attica prison riots. So Roy went to the general manager. At the time, it was Sam Johnson, and asked him if he could train me to become a DJ as opposed to a news person. And so since the station went off when it was dark, I was able to actually learn on the actual equipment. So he taught me how to run the board, how to do everything I needed to do to go on the air. But one important thing I think I missed that I have to go back. I have to digress for a minute. When I had my audition to do news, remember, I'm coming in cold, no experience. They don't know me. So Roy was very kind, and he allowed me to audition to do the news. Well, he said, we don't have any jobs copywriting, but we have an opening as a news reporter, and we'll try you out. Okay. I was terrible. I was so nervous. My voice was cracking. I was like, but bless his heart, he found, he thought that I had, there was something there, that I had some promise. And so he said, look, I know you're nervous. I'm going to give you a chance to go home, practice, and I'm going to give you another chance to come back. And so I went home and I listened to Barbara Walters and whatever news people I could hear. And I got my little cassette and I was reading the news into the cassette all the time. My sister was laughing at me, but I didn't care. I said, this is my shot. Right. So anyways, I came back and I got to actually go, he heard the second audition and he says, well, you still have promise. He said, I can hear that you're still nervous. And I was, but it wasn't as bad as the first time. So he just gave me a shot. And, I'm so grateful to him. To this day, we're still friends on Facebook. And he really made it happen for me. And another thing that he said to me, because I asked him why he chose me, because there was another person who had also applied. And I think this is a good lesson for young people. He said, because I came dressed the part. And she came in her jeans. And when you're trying to find a job, when I was in college, we played bid whist. You got to play to win. Yeah. Yeah. I didn't know anything about power suits back then, but you better believe I had on my best dress that I would wear to church. I was, I was looking.
No Foxy Brown get up or nothing. It was your best dress.
No. So, anyways, I had a wonderful time, and close to maybe before I left, I was about to lose my position again because of the license issue. I don't know if they still require that. We had to have a third-class license with an endorsement.
I don't think so.
Okay, well, and by the time Roy had gone on to another position in another city. Mm-hmm. And so I had to take this exam. And I was also told that if I didn't pass this exam, I couldn't be on the air. Right. And I went down there and I was nervous and I failed the exam. Now, I was a pretty good student in school, but It was like, who knew? I mean, there's a little bit of physics on there and I just didn't know it. And so I was very sad. We had an ice storm the following week and my sister was off. At the time, she was a teacher. Mm-hmm. And she might have been an assistant principal too. But at any rate, she went to a bookstore and bought some books on physics. The girl was a genius. She read the books and tutored me that whole weekend because she was home. Mm-hmm. I went back and passed the exam with flying colors, came back and didn't even tell anybody at the station that I had taken it, and just came in one day and gave them my license. And so, that was like a victorious thing. So, that was a wonderful time in my life. I remember being on the air once when we had a snowstorm and people couldn't get.
By any chance?
Say that again.
Was that the blizzard of '77? Or
No, I survived the blizzard of 77 by being in Los Angeles. I was gone by then. But guess what? It was on the front page of the Los Angeles Times. The LA Times. It was Buffalo. I was shocked. Well, it was just one of our many blizzards. Right. And the other people couldn't get there. I don't know where they lived or if I was closer or whatever. And I was on the air that day, all day long. And I remember I said, oh, I can't wait to get home and go lay down and take a nap. Got home, went to bed, and dreamt I was still on the air. couldn't even get a break there.
This is the ultimate black experience in sound.
And you better believe it, baby. 1034 the Queen City, new compact edition of the New York State Thruway Map is yours absolutely free and any toll booth on the thruway. With its safety tips and historical highlights, it makes a great summer travel companion. Emotions from the album Flowers, and I don't want to lose your love, honey. Tears rain, and the water is clear. UFO, that's New Birth from the album Love Potion and Falling in Love All Over Again. And I'm falling in love all over again with everybody and everything because I must say this has to be one of the saddest days of my life. Really. The thought that, I don't know, I guess when you get ready to leave home and you realize all the good people that you're leaving behind, it just makes you sad. But once again, I want to dedicate my entire show to my good friends, Lemoyne West and Juanita Mickles, for giving me such a smash-up surprise party last night and just kind of making my day and everything. And I'm going to miss you all, I'm telling you. On the final week on the Sugar Show right here, I'm going to be going to Los Angeles, California. I'm going to be leaving you. But I'm going to be back to visit you, you better believe it. Michael Jackson, 71, gone.
So, and after that, I graduated from Buff State, and I really wanted to leave Buffalo for lots of reasons. Number one, I couldn't really support myself on the salary. We weren't being paid very much back in those days. I think I made $135 a week. I'm like, I can't even pay rent with this, And so I went to New York, and I went by WWRL, and I spent some time with Gary Bird and met some of the other folks there. And or Imhotep Gary Bird, he likes to be called now, he gave me a tip about LA. He says, they're looking for their first female DJ in Los Angeles. I'm like, oh, okay. I really didn't want to go to LA. I wanted to go to New York. Mm-hmm. Number one, I was afraid of earthquakes. And I had an aunt who said, girl, don't be afraid of that, because if it's for you, you're going to get it. And if it's not your time, you ain't going nowhere. So I said, okay. I took that on, and I sent an air check that I made just one day on the air. I mailed it to LA, and a gentleman by the name of Arnold Shore, who was the general manager, heard the air check, and he said, oh, it sounds really good, but can you send me another one? So I'm like, okay, I didn't think anything of it. The next day I went in, I recorded my show. I was just sending him, my show each day, with the music cut out. Well, he told me later, he thought he couldn't believe it. He thought I had doctored the tape. That's why he asked for a second tape. He didn't feel like, he said he didn't think I could be that good. I'm like, but you know what? Back in those days too, I was so young that I didn't take offense to it. I'm like, hey. So the next time I talked to him, he said, how soon can you get here? And again, my big sister and I got in my Pinto, and it was a stick shift with no air conditioning.
Stick shift. Those must have been the cars those must have been the cars to have, huh?
I mean, she and I just figured out, we had gotten in and learned how to drive it. People told me what to do, and we just trial and error. But they were the cheaper cars too, so that's why I had a stick shift. But we got in the car. We left in it was like August, and I remember we were having a big community picnic somewhere, but I didn't get to go to the picnic. And she and I got in the car that afternoon and took off from Buffalo, and we did not stop until we got to Pine Bluff, Wyoming, taking turns. She would drive and I would sleep, and vice versa. And about 3 days later, we arrived in Los Angeles, and I went on the air as the first female DJ on KGFJ.
KGFJ, Los Angeles. It's 4 o'clock at KGFJ, Los Angeles. KGFJ Disco Duck, instrumentally yours. 502. This is AWB. Cut the cake. KGFJ, cut that cake, honey. 505 with Average White Band and Darcel.
KGFJ.
KGFJ, put it anywhere you want it, honey, but get it out of my face. This is Leon Hayward. Streets will love you to death.
And when I got there, do you know, not when I first arrived, but after I'd been there for a while, there were 3 of us from Buffalo on the air at KGFJ. It was Don Early Allen, myself, and the late, Don is gone too, but also the late Warren Epps. And that was just amazing to me that the 3 of us, Don was on drive time, I was on midday, and Warren came on after me.
That's the one unique thing about WUFO personalities. I guess they have. There's that old saying of wherever you go around the clock, you're bound to hear a WUFO jock. But it seems like
I never heard that.
I got that. Guess who I got? You know who I got that from, right?
No, who?
Gary Bird.
Okay. It's true though.
Himself. But it
is so true.
I mean, the one thing about WUFO DJs that especially like back in those days, I mean, I've always envied y'all, because you started WUFO and you've been able to just go just around the country and make names for yourselves and rub elbows with some of the they're legends today, but they were on the come up back in those days. And one of the pictures that I saw you had on your Facebook page, and the one that I was kind of envious of was the picture you took with Michael Jackson. So what was that?
That was at KGFJ. Yeah. Okay. What was that like? You said?
Yeah.
Mike was just as nice and quiet, easy spirit. Just a sweet spirit. All of them were so nice. And I wasn't even in so much in awe of them. It's just that you receive them. Their sisters the same way. People used to joke about LaToya, but LaToya is a sweetheart.
Yeah.
I met her in New York. But the Jackson family were just wonderful people. And in Los Angeles, I did a show called Darcel in Hollywood, and it was syndicated in 150 markets. I think I mentioned that recently. And they told me that the show reached 75% of the total Black radio listening audience in America. And I interviewed about 80 of our African-American artists, musicians, actors, singers. It was a great time for me. I met everybody. It was just, I mean, I've been proposed to by Teddy Pendergrass.
Oh, really?
I know he was joking, but he's, you know, that was
Teddy Bear himself.
joking. He was joking, but I mean, that was his, we're waiting on the, we're waiting on the engineer to hook us up so we can start our interview. And he just, you know, messing with me. He was like, hey, you know, you marry me. And I, you know, I was so wet behind the ears. I didn't even know what to say. I'm like, oh, he said that to me, you know. I spent the day in the studio with Stevie Wonder. That was probably the highlight of my time in Los Angeles.
I'll tell you, when I before I left Buffalo, and I did one of my last interviews before I left there, was with Gary Bird. It was right after he had been inducted into the Buffalo Music Hall of Fame. He was staying at a motel in right near the UB Amherst campus. Mm-hmm. I got out there around, it was after 3 a.m. in the morning because he had a lot of stuff going on that day. And I got out there with my camera to interview him. When I walked in the motel room, he was on the phone with Stevie Wonder while I was setting up the camera to get ready to interview him. Yeah. He's over here on the other side of the room chopping it up with Stevie Wonder.
They've been tight for years.
Yeah. I know. I heard.
Yeah.
Talked about it.
Yeah. He's also a good friend of mine, Bobby Humphrey. She played flute on my CD. I've only made one. You know, I'm a singer also.
Yes.
And I really, when I found out I was going to be in radio, I thought that was going to open up the door to my music career. Right. It did not. But I mean, I don't have any regrets. And especially as I've matured and have seen what has happened to some of our great artists and how difficult a time they had. You know, they made some beautiful music, but they made some sacrifices. You know, they've had to go through some things. They've had to lose some stuff. They've sometimes lost their lives. So, you know, my hat is off to them. But KGFJ was a great place to be as well. I had a lot of fun there. And I always loved, one of the things that I did in Buffalo a lot was I did emceed a lot of concerts.
Yeah. What were some of the concerts, if you can remember?
One was the Isley Brothers when Fight the Power came out. I was supposed to do a gig with Earth, Wind, and Fire, and I learned a lesson there that, you know, being very young when I started, I used to take a lot of my girlfriends with me. And one of them made me late for my Earth, Wind, and Fire gig once. So I started going to my gigs alone after that.
Late to see the elements,
huh? Say it again?
You was late to see the elements?
I was. Ooh. But, you know, it was a harsh lesson. And then there was an MC job for a Smokey Robinson concert. That one was difficult though, because they didn't have enough people that showed up. And I don't know, maybe in his contract, he didn't have to perform if there were, you know, if they didn't have enough ticket sales or whatever, but they wanted me to go out and basically say something that wasn't true. And that was rough. That was rough for me. So I think things like that kind of made me
toughened you up.
You know what? Let me turn up my thing so I don't have to keep. I got a volume here. Okay, I didn't hear what you said.
Did it like toughen you up basically?
Yes, absolutely. It toughened me up, and it also gave me a more professional attitude, because I realized even though it was entertainment, I was still working. you know, that, and you gotta be on point. So it never happened again after that. I did a lot of community service in LA too. They were always sending me somewhere. Which was, yeah, that was good, except once in Compton, I got surrounded by 6 police cars. You talk about police stopping African Americans. Boy, those cops scared me to death. Because here I was kind of new to LA, and I think that they thought I was a little boy because I used to wear a short afro, and I was driving a brand new car, which was mine. And when they stopped me, they said, "Oh, we thought you were somebody else, and you know, we're looking for somebody with a stolen car issue." But by then, I was like this. I'm like, "Oh my God!"
Yeah, we all know the story with LA and police. Yes.
Yeah. So, so anyway, so I was at LA. I had a good run. Again, the person who hired me left. We got a new person. I'm not going to mention his name because things didn't work out too well for us. And he basically was the reason I left, because he used to say, well, my thing was, I called myself, when I was in LA, I was a love lady. And I would play, you know, I was on late, and I used to play a lot of love music. And this is what I was doing when he came into the thing. But I mean, it was cool. It's like, it's evening time. Yes, maybe you want the person you love and you want to hear some good music.
I've done the quiet storm, I understand.
Well, he wanted me to be rough. And he used to say, "I'm going to put the killer instinct in you." And one evening while I was doing my show, he called me up on the hotline and cursed me out. And I'm like, gosh, I mean, at least he could have waited till I finished the show. He was angry because he wanted that killer instinct. He wanted me to be more rough and upbeat. Now, here's the thing. You know, I won't even call myself a former DJ, because if somebody called me tomorrow, I'd be back on the air. So, but I mean, I knew how to be rough. I knew how to be up and down. I could roll with the punches, whatever it was I'm playing. You know how DJs do. You kind of take on the persona of the music.
Right.
So, but I think, in retrospect, I think that it might have been just a kind of a chauvinistic thing that was going on. So anyways, prior to this happening, maybe like just a couple of days, Don Allen and Gary Bird, who were both in New York, called me up and said, "Look, Darcel, they're looking for their first female in New York on WWRL."
You've had a lot of firsts, I see.
Huh? I had what?
You've had a lot of firsts, I see.
I did. Oh, all of the stations I worked for full time, I was the first female. So anyways, they called me up. They said, "We're looking for our first female." And I laughed at them. I said, "Man, I go to barbecues in February." Now, you know, coming from Buffalo, that's a big deal. I'm like, I can't. I said, "I'm not giving up this beautiful place where I'm living and having so much fun." And they said, "Okay, we understand." So that night, that man got me so upset that we used to make air checks regularly. We had something hooked up in the studio that when you got off the air, your air check was right there. I took that air check and I sent it immediately to WWRL. I sent it to Bob Law. And the same kind of response. It was like, "We want you. Come. How long can you get?" You know, they paid for me. They had somebody come and pack up my belongings. And a few weeks later, I was on the air in Los Angeles. They put me up in a hotel for a few months. They don't do stuff like that anymore, but
no. You know. Unfortunately, no.
But that's what happened, and I came to New York, and I was very disappointed because New York culture is so different than Los Angeles. And yes, it's true, they had a lot going on. You know, they were one of the ways they tried to entice me was to tell me about all of the things that were happening, all the concerts I'd be going to, all of the MC jobs I'd have, all of the parties I'd go to and all that. Well, it was mostly true, but it was just so different, the culture shock. And then I got my car broken into like first few weeks that I was there. I think it happened on Christmas, Christmas Eve.
Wow.
And the potholes and the roaches. People would ask me, what do you think about New York? I said, there's nothing here but rats, roaches, potholes, and thieves. But I obviously grew to love New York because I stayed there for 3 decades. I said, as a 22-year-old girl, I said, if I don't like New York, I can always come back to LA. It took me 12 years just to get back to visit. And New York was just wonderful to me. I can't say enough about the miracles that happened to me in New York.
Darcel, WWRL New York. WWRL, you're listening to the Progressive AM in New York. I'm Darcel. Good evening, and thank you for joining me. It's 8:50. That was Elvin King, and You Make My Love Come Down. Oh, and it feels so good. Here is Dionne Warwick. Spirit 16, WWRL, the radio station that makes you feel good. It's 6:35, I'm Darcel. As we continue with music from Becky Fender and Brand New Life, this is George Benson, Down Here on the Ground.
Down here on the ground.
You've been listening to a total music hour, music only on the Progressive AM, and I've been bringing it to you. I'm Darcel, winding it down now. That's going to do it for me. I'll be back again tomorrow at noon. Hope you'll join me then. Gary Bird is up next. Be sweet, take it light, love you, and may God bless you. David Oliver taking me home with a song called Miss. Good afternoon.
I did my stint at WWRL. I ended up leaving in a union dispute because they'd cut the staff and the salaries and things like that. I took a buyout, I left. But the last couple of years, I had been going back to school. And my plan was to become a psychologist on the air. So I went to Columbia University. I earned 2 master's degrees in psychology, and I was on my way. And I even interned with Dr. Judith Korinsky, who was on WABC. I had a friend, James Golden, in New York, who worked for her. He worked for ABC, and he helped me get that internship. So, I kind of felt like I was on my way, but somewhere along the line, I got the call to ministry. And
yes, I wanted to go into that. What got you into ministry?
Okay. I think I was always, I had a tug in that direction. I was always a kind of a religious person. I remember when we used to cross the Kensington Expressway after they got rid of Humboldt Parkway. And you know how kids would cross there. Sometimes when they first put that thing up, kids got killed and stuff. And I would cross with my friends. I didn't want to, but whenever I got across, I say, "Thank you, Jesus." They used to tease me. But anyhow, I used to have long talks with Imhotep Gary at the station. He was very into his faith, and he would talk about what he believed, and he seemed to me knew more about my own religion. I said, this ain't right. I need to find out what it is that I believe. And I just went to the Yellow Pages to find a seminary that I could go to and see if there was a program that I could attend and still work. And that's what happened. I went to New York Theological Seminary. They had a Saturday program. It was 2 years. I almost didn't go because I said, I don't want to commit my Saturdays every Saturday for 2 years. And I even spent the money and told the people I wasn't coming. And the morning of orientation, it was like I was on automatic pilot. I got straight up, took a shower, got dressed, and drove right to the seminary. And I remember the director saying, "What happened? I thought you said you weren't coming." I said, "I don't know. Here I am." And the rest was history. And I ended up, I grew up in Bethel AME Church in Buffalo. So I was an AME, but also started out at Friendship Baptist Church as a little girl. But somehow, where was I going with that? Oh, I know. I was seeing Y.T. Walker on TV, and I think also they had a program on our station, and I really liked him. I liked the things that I hear him say. And I wasn't even aware that he was the chief strategist for the civil rights movement at the time. I mean, he was the chief of staff for Martin Luther King. Anyhow, I went to that church, I joined, and the seminary was having a seminary, they were having seminary days at different churches. And I went to Pastor Walker and asked him if he would like to have a seminary day. And he didn't know that I was a seminary. And he said, "Are you going into the ministry there?" And before I knew it, I just said yes. And he said, "Well, we got to get you ready." And anybody that knew the late Dr. Wyatt T. Walker, if he said you got to get ready, then you just get ready. And that, yeah. And that entailed me preaching a trial sermon, getting licensed, and eventually ordained. I worked in chaplaincy. I was a hospital chaplain. That's how I started. I was a prison chaplain. I was a program director for New York Theological Seminary at one time. The same program I went through, I became the director of the certificate program in Christian ministry. I just was very fortunate in that regard. While I was in New York, I always worked in ministry. I was the director of the church desk for the Federation of Protestant Welfare Agencies. I was a chaplain for the notorious Rikers Island. And I was administrative chaplain in the state. I was actually working 1 hour outside of Buffalo. I only stayed 6 months because I still had a home in Jersey, and I was going back and forth, and it was really difficult. But that's pretty much it in a nutshell.
It's called unity. We're still looking for unity as we approach the celebration of the birth of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. We thank Imhotep Gary Bird for a very inspired show. It's so good to hear from my pastor, the Reverend Dr. Wyatt T. Walker. We're still looking for a harvest in 2007. This is Amazing Grace. As you may have noticed, we are commercial free thanks to our fabulous friends at Fox. We'll tell you a little bit more about that in just a few minutes. Continuing with Coco on 107.5 WBLS. Look at me! I'm the Reverend Dr. Darcel Holloway. This is Amazing Grace. How sweet the sound and how sweet to have you here with me. I'm so glad to be back. Hoping you had a lovely holiday and a happy new year, and that you will spend tomorrow, if you have the day off, or even if you don't, that you will spend it in a very constructive way to honor the memory of our leader, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. Much more music still to come. Stay with me.
I wanted to ask you, I wanted to get back to WUFO I wanted to reflect on something. So we'll talk about some of the people that you worked with there while you were there at WUFO.
Trying to remember the names. Well, I mentioned Duncan McCall and L. Parker. And
Don Mullins there when you were there?
Oh, yes, I'm so glad you brought him up. He was just a pleasure to work for. I just adored him. He used to tease me because I had so much fun. while I was on the air. And you remember how the studio was in the middle of the station?
Yeah.
And so people, when business folks were coming in and out, they could see you. People would stand around watching because I'd be in there dancing and playing the music and singing and stuff. And Mr. Mullins would say, girl, we need to have you pay us to work here because you have so much fun. Yeah, you know what? You can help me out with some of the names because it's been a while.
Okay. Let's see.
Who
Would have been there? Chucky T?
Yes. Well, no, I didn't. I missed Chucky T, but I do remember him. I used to listen to him.
Pollard?
Yes, I remember him as well. I think he came along after me. Chucky was before and Keith was after. I think I might have, we just crossed paths. I'm thinking of somebody, I can see him, but I can't remember his name.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'm trying to think of people.
It's been a while. It's been a while.
Oh, yeah.
And also, you know, Don and I worked at WUFO together too. Don Early Allen.
Don Allen, yes.
Yeah. And back in the day when we were going off in the wintertime, there would just be 3 of us on the air.
Was Danny Harris there by any chance while you were there?
No, I don't know him. Although, you know, people have told me that I met them, but, you know, when you haven't spoke a name in 30 years or
you've had such a multitude of people that have come through there, and
that is so true. That is so true. I remember now. I've never met him, but I remember people talking about Eddie OJ.
Okay.
Eddie OJ, and they said that the OJs were named after him.
Right.
Now, another Buffalo personality. I didn't work with him in Buffalo, but I worked with him in New York, and that was Jerry Bledsoe.
Okay.
Jerry was a big fan of mine. He really, I put on a couple of concerts and stuff when I was trying to break into the music industry, and he would come and he would always say to me, girl, you need to be recording. You know, he was very encouraging to me. I really appreciated Jerry.
Okay. Any other memories from 89 LaSalle Avenue before we get ready to close on out?
Gosh.
Any community events that you were involved in back then?
Say it again.
Any community events in conjunction with the station back then?
One of the I don't know if this was a thing in conjunction with the station, but I remember covering it as a news reporter, and that was a concert we had at Buff State.
Okay.
I used to sing with the All College Gospel Choir, and so they opened up for Nikki Giovanni. That for me was a big deal because I have always loved Nikki Giovanni. And while I was on the air, we used to play. She had 2 albums that we played cuts from. One was My House, and the other one was The Truth Is On Its Way. So, you know, we were off the heels of that 60s movements because we were in the 70s now. But these people were, well, sheroes, I'll say, in her case, but they were our heroes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's certainly been is there anything else that you'd like to add before we close on out?
Just that after I left Buffalo, I just so grew to appreciate it. You know, once you leave the place and you look back on the memories, you know, I still have family in Buffalo. I still have friends in Buffalo. I was there a couple of years ago for my cousin's wedding. Dr. Lori Alford, she married Terry Alford. I sang at their wedding, as a matter of fact. And I got to stay in Buffalo for almost a month. And I just loved it. I enjoyed myself so much. I've kind of had a longing to come home, and who knows? I may one of these days, or at least come and spend some of the summers. It's been fun. I was actually a guest DJ on WUFO recently, since we've been in lockdown. Oh, it was in June. It was for Black Music Month.
Okay, wonderful.
That was fun. That was fun. That was so much fun. And I congratulate them for what they're doing, and Sheila Brown's leadership, and becoming an FM station. What is it? Power 95.
Power 96.5.
Okay, Power 96.5. So it's wonderful. I love to see things grow. I'm a graduate of Bennett High. Shout out to Bennett High.
Right, class of 89 right here.
Okay. And so Buff State, Bennett High, Fillmore Middle, School 74. And my church, Bethel AME Church. The last time I was at Bethel, a couple years ago, I took a picture with women that I went to Sunday school with. It's just such a nice feeling when you come home and, to borrow a friend of mine's term, it's good to go where you're known and loved. Sometimes you're out in the world and people tolerate you, but this the whole notion of tolerance means to put up with somebody. So that's I don't think it's so honorable. But when you come home, it's like you come home to people that know you and love you, and it feels really good. I really most of the people I know love their hometown. There's no other place like it. Somebody told me, and I probably shouldn't say this, but somebody told me recently that there are billboards up that say "Keep Buffalo a Secret."
Yeah, there is. That's I'm not sure which part of Buffalo it's in, but I think it's near downtown. But I am familiar with that.
I heard about that because, I know real estate is booming in Buffalo, and people are discovering that they don't have to spend all their money in places like New York City, and can go to Buffalo and do so much better. So I don't know. I'm expecting great things. I admire Mayor Brown and the work he's done. And gosh, he's been a mayor for a long time.
Yep.
That's incredible. I was looking at a memorial to my sister recently. It was a proclamation from the mayor. My sister passed in 2004, and it was signed by Mayor Byron Brown. I'm like, whoa, that's awesome. So, Buffalo's a great city. It is a well-kept secret, but we know the deal. It's not a secret to us. And I've been following you and the work that you've been doing, Doug, and I commend you. I just love watching your videos and just seeing that we are preserving our rich history. So thank you for doing your part.
And I'd like to thank you, Reverend Dr. Darcel Holloway, for being on the Buffalo History Channel. It's been a pleasure to sit here and get a history of WUFO from a woman's perspective from back in the day.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
It's been my pleasure being here.
All right. Good to have you.